Hello everyone, welcome back. I am honoring requests from viewers that wanted me to look at Trump's solar eclipse, or the eclipse in his natal chart. So I have the chart here. The inner wheel is his natal chart. The outer wheel are all the transits and the solar eclipse. It's a partial solar eclipse this time, happening on March 29th. At almost 7 a.m. Eastern Time. So you can adjust, according to your time zone, and you could put all these planets in your chart if you wanted to, look at that as well. So eclipses, there's the rules that I use is I was taught by Bernadette Brady, so I use her rules, and they can bring in events weeks, even weeks before they come. So the info leaks that we've had already, and even more, will continue to come out. I'm doing this reading on today's the 25th, so it's really only 4 days away. But the lunar eclipse first happened. Because the lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipses always happen 2 weeks before the solar eclipse. That happened on March, I think, 13th, 14th, somewhere in there. And we can see what has been going on. More and more information comes out. And they didn't want it to come out, right? Because with the lunar eclipse being internal events, what's happening is that it's bringing it out externally now with the solar eclipse. They are external events. But things are coming out from his internal, the people around him, basically. And that does definitely bode with the fact that, so here's the eclipse right here. The solar eclipses are always new moons. It's coming in at 9 degrees of Aries, 0 minutes, literally. Lined up right there with his part of fortune, and Mercury is also conjunct. So, and then Neptune moves into Aries, 0 degrees Aries, the very next day, March 30th. And so, Venus is in there. So all of this, see how the line goes out and around? This is telling us that, the program couldn't fit all of these glyphs and degrees into the one house. But all of these are in his 8th house. The 8th house has to do with death, sex, death, rebirth, taxes, transformation, transitions a person goes through whether or not they want to. It's also the house of other people's resources. Because his 8th house is Aries, it's ruled by Mars. So sometimes astrologers will look at the 8th house and say, this might be the way the person leaves whatever's in there and transits through, whatever's in there natally and transits through, can be the way a person leaves this lifetime. If that's the case, it's warring type of energy, it's invasive type of energy, and it may very well have something to do with the fact that he has Eris in his 8th house, which, Eris has to do with the feminine struggle for equality. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be a bunch of women that are going to go get him, but this is challenging for him, I would think, to have transits cross over. And so the sun and the moon already have, right? The sun moves 1 degree every day, and the moon is, I don't know. I think it's it's a half a degree every hour. So, but anyway, all this is just, we have to think in terms of an event. When the solar eclipse has an event, when we have an eclipse, it is an event that lasts for 6 months. And sometimes they're life-changing. That's the way it works. There are sometimes an opening up to a new cycle of preparation of a new cycle, because It's a new moon. The solar eclipses are always new moons, so it's about setting intentions. For you guys personally, it'd be about setting intentions in Aries. It would be in new ways that you could, lay a new foundation in life and start something brand new. And it really honors the presence of who you are, where you can move forward with your instincts and come through the other side with a whole lot of independence. It can be very daring. But for him, this is his 8th house of other people and their resources. So he has, delusion, deception. He has, the gaslighting of women and the feminine with Venus and Pisces there. Saturn, no less. Saturn is in there as well. So we're talking lessons, and we're talking the government who, this could be also a lot of people that gang up on us with him, but that's not going to work out, because what that's going to wind up doing over the years, whether or not he stays in or, whatever happens, it's going to wind up, you've got the toilet with the flush. There's a big sucking going south, right? Well, we can put the GOP. We could say this is the house of the GOP for him, because Saturn is transiting through there. The government is ruled by Saturn. And then also the 8th house being, his house of other people. Well, others' relationships is the 7th house, but it's other people and their resources. And like I said, death and rebirth. It's a house of death and rebirth. So with the sun and the moon, with the solar eclipse, it's not hitting anything directly other than it's within a 4-degree orb of Neptune, so that really intensifies the delusion and the deception, and financially. The 2nd and 8th houses are money houses, right? Like your personal money, and the 8th house is the money you share with others. Well, we're, all the information leaks coming out. It's not just about this, Signal app debacle. I just did a reading on that, so I'm not gonna. If I go into it, this is going to take too long. It's not just about that. It's also about everything that's coming out about Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is his, biggest campaign donor, and he's how Trump got in the White House. Neptune in Pisces at this 29th degree, soon to move into Aries, that will push information out, because it's going to be like mixing Mars and Neptune together, because Mars rules Aries. When Neptune's in Aries, it's going to be like that. But while it's been in Pisces for the last 14 years, and then it's made it to this nth degree, during the election, we were cheated. Neptune can be deception and rules the masses, right? So he has cheated the masses with deceptive votes. And so Mercury's retrograde and moving back towards Neptune, which is going direct and in Aries, when these two hook up, we can bet that information is going to come out. So that's even more information about the cheating of the election is going to come out. Whether or not anybody does anything about it, well, we might have to wait until Saturn catches up to Neptune. I'm not sure about that. Not even sure if they'll do anything. This is on the Dems and the Independents, and if there are any good GOP members. I'm feeling kind of doubtful. They've already left. But then again, maybe it could be someone that's left, like Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. Is that his name? No, I'm mixing up Sarah Kinzinger. Kinzinger, I think, is his last name. Anyway, so Trump, and then natally with the transit, Mars, which is the natural ruler of Aries, is over here on his Saturn, and so Saturn would be his the big organ, his natal Saturn in on the 11th, and with Venus there. This is his money and governmental organizations that he's always been involved in. His dad taught him that. Saturn rules the father as well. His father taught him how to handle the government to get subsidies and to get money. And that was one of the ways that he grew the bit that he did. But he has had 6 personal bankruptcies, and he has, how do you bankrupt a casino, right? But I think, with Pluto in the 12th, this is his underworld connection to just be able to know how to, figure out how to launder money. This is his old, Mussolini past life. And then natally now, Pluto has made it around, almost halfway around. Pluto's now in his 6th house of health. So I'm predicting deception and betrayal with this eclipse. It may take 6 months. It may take, I don't know how long, but it's an event that will eventually, come out, or he'll experience it. And Pluto in the 6th house is not only bad health, but it's also, well, no, I can't say that that's the case for everyone else. If you're working in the light and you get Pluto in the 6th house, it can turn out to be very powerful in the realms of creating good health and serving, like a position in a healthcare industry where you're actually serving, maybe even alternative health. But for him, no. Because he doesn't work in the light. So I'm going to predict that this is bad health, and I'm going to predict that this is darkness coming through. And he's not going to live long enough for Pluto to get to the 7th house. He's not going to transform his relationship. That's the thing, is in a natal chart, you look and see where Pluto, began, and you're not going to make it usually until, halfway around the chart. You'd have to live to be quite an advanced age, because it takes so long to get through each house. But it does have an elliptical orbit, so it can stay in one house, one sign and one house for a shorter amount of time, like 11 years, and then some signs it'll stay in there for 15 or 18. But anyway, Pluto in his 12th, lots of subconscious, unconscious issues, and then to make it through his 1st house of self, and then money, and then mind, and then family, and then creativity and children, and all of that, and he hasn't done well. Pluto in the 5th for him was all about risky investments, and didn't care about how he made money. It was more about what he could get, what he could take. It's like very narcissistic in this house. Of course, mostly ruled by Capricorn. But Pluto in the 6th is not going to be favorable for him or his co-workers. I guess they just work in the darkness is a better way to say it. The people who serve with him, they don't really serve. They serve him. So the tyrant, the born psychopath tyrant, has now made it to where he's going to deal with some health issues for the rest of his life. Major health issues. So there's that. Also, what we can look at, so with the eclipse, just to finish up with that, the eclipse is going to affect him mostly, like I said, in his resources with others. And so whatever resources he holds with others, those people will go down with him. They will go down first, because for now he has immunity. That might be gone because Chiron is transiting through his 9th house. That might leave. And then, don't forget, fixed star Algol is right up here on close to his midheaven, right there with Uranus. April, May, into the fall, if he makes it that long. You know what happened the first time around, July 13th. But then again, it's probably all staged. It was probably a big old staged event, and God saved him. Right. And just as a means to grift. Now, the 8th house is definitely the house of grift. Okay? So what will be revealed about the grift is one of my questions. What will be revealed about the election is another one of my questions. More to do with women, that could definitely happen. Venus is going to be hanging out in his 8th house for quite some time because she's retrograde. The nodal axis is going to go this way because the nodes go backwards. The planets, as they transit, I'm sorry. The nodes are going to go this way, clockwise. The planets go counterclockwise as they transit. So the nodal axis is going to continue to stay in his 2nd and 8th house for quite some time. And we have this time the nodal axis is lasting all the way through July. I think it was July 7th when I looked it up yesterday. If you guys like astrology, I do it in my daily readings right after like 3 cards with the tarot. So feel free there to watch. I go into more detail. But anyway, for him, I'll just say and this is perfect, because what soul on the planet would need to learn more than him? The fact that money doesn't buy happiness and love. It can buy security and some forms of power, as being able to control reality the way he knows how to do so well with the legal system. But he was taught that, and anybody could learn it, but he has that. So he's going to finish out, I think, this lifetime trying to learn that lesson between who he is and what he has and what other people have, and does that buy you happiness? Can you buy happiness? I think not. You have to have yourself to be happy. He doesn't have himself. Psychopaths and narcissists, they do not have themselves. They are dependent on the outer world to reflect back to them who they think they are, but not who they really are. In this lifetime, he's not going to figure out who he really is because he's never done any of that personal process work to even come close. So there's that. But other interesting factors with the eclipse is going to affect him financially, is the way I'm going to speak about it, and maybe some more sex scandal could come out, maybe something that has to do with children. That could happen. Being his Saturn and Venus here in the 11th house of other people's children. Oh, anyway. So, also, the eclipse is squaring his natal Mercury. See how Mercury's at 8 degrees? Now, I don't call this a direct hit. It's just an influence, I tend to only do squares to the moon and sun, which that is exactly what he had when we had the lunar eclipse over here. It was at 24 degrees, and his sun is almost 23 degrees. It's 22:55 minutes. There was an exact hit there, an exact hit over here to his natal moon, which is something that's very rare to see. So, between the hit to Mercury, which is kind of weak, but then transiting, though, I wouldn't call it the square to Mercury. I wouldn't call it an eclipse event. I would call it just a a temporary event, but it's still there because it squares his natal Mercury. And what does the sun do? It reveals. What's the moon about? The public mood. And there's a square, there's a challenge to the way he thinks, very selfishly, pretty much about himself. So there's that. And Mercury also rules transactions. Transactions for himself. You can see transiting Jupiter is on his natal Uranus, moving towards the North Node and the Sun, this whole stellium here. Jupiter-Uranus can bring in surprising results that a person might like. It can also be a big, expansive reversal of fortune. We'll see how it goes. Mars, transiting Mars on his Saturn, I covered that. As Mars moves forward, it'll be on his Venus. There could be some problems with women. And then Venus is transiting Venus over here at 28 degrees Pisces is, because it's retrograde, it's squaring his, well, retrograde or not, it's squaring his sun. So again, there's another aspect with, another problem with money and women. And what people value versus what he does. So there's that. And then, besides the nodal axis squaring his sun and moon, which isn't good, it's not a tight orb anymore, but it was, it's still there. But the big thing I want to just end this with is that transiting Saturn over here is squaring his moon. See how Saturn's at 24 degrees, his moon's at 21, and this has been happening, and it's something I didn't bring up in the first eclipse video. Well, because I think I was doing it with a tarot reading at the time, so I didn't want to spend the time. But Saturn square the moon can be depression. It can be just a big old mountain of something, and with well, and the government too, but in Pisces, I'm feeling like it could just be an overwhelming amount of depression where he's just in this fog and all over the place emotionally. And it's also triggering, past life issues, which he has in huge amounts. So, okay, that's all. I think I'm done. Take good care, you guys. Bye.